Press 3.
Yeah, most of us get hooked on dinosaurs pretty early. It's like a baby's first words are mama, dada, and stegosaurus.
Prisoners of Gravity will begin in just a few moments. Club Dave Video Mall. For a limited time only, Club Dave is proud to offer the Fred Rogers Sportswear Collection. Choose from classic sweaters and footwear, all made of quality child-proof material, designed to last, and last, and last. Mr. Rogers label, it's a beautiful day in any neighborhood. To order, press 1. To select another program, press Select. To select another program, press Select. To select another program, press Select.
Club Dave is a virtual interactive service of KPBS San Diego.
So my advice to writers has always been, put in a dinosaur. When in doubt, a dinosaur is always helpful.
Comics always would, if they wanted to sell the comic and didn't have anything else to hook it with, they'd put a dinosaur on the cover. I mean, there's no better way to get a kid to pick it up off the stands than to stick a dinosaur on the cover, whether he belongs there or not.
He was an iron-jawed eating machine. With his tiny brain and powerful thighs, he was the king. Until he suddenly died. His name? No, Nancy, Tyrannosaurus Rex. Gone but not forgotten. Dinosaurs are more popular than ever, the subject of new books, TV specials, feature films. Just run the opening, Nancy.
Anti-Semitism in Eastern Europe has voted the English-only sign. 40,000 tons of armed with PCBs blew up the ozone layer today.
Standing by for solid rocket booster separation.
Greetings, prisoners of gravity. I'm Commander Rick, the floating fossil of fandom. Dinosaurs, thunder lizards. Hard to believe they've been dead for 65 million years. I mean, I keep seeing breakthroughs in dinosaur research, new species discovered, new evidence of how they lived. There are new dinosaur books published every month. Some science fact, some science fiction, some pure fantasy. Every writer and artist I know loves dinosaurs. For example, at the 1991 Nebula Awards in New York, one of my associates in control mentioned dinosaurs to science fiction writers Michael Swanwick and James Patrick Kelly.
Governor Dozois has this theory that when a story starts to flag, you need to put dinosaur in it, and that will pick up immediately the interest of the science fiction crowd. And so he has prescribed for all different kinds of stories, and the way I used it was, I have a story called Mr. Boy, in which I was trying very hard to figure out how I could get a dinosaur into a far future society. And I was mulling this over. Well, do I want to have dinosaurs from another planet? Do I want to have dinosaurs reconstructed? I finally hit upon the idea of having people would have themselves genetically sculpted into being dinosaurs. But that one little thing where Gardner's suggestion was that you need to have a dinosaur in order to keep that interest level high was sort of like what kicked off the whole background for the story Mr. Boy, which is up for the Nebula tonight. But he knows all about this because...
About 20 years ago, a friend of Gardner's, is actually a pretty famous science fiction writer I won't mention, had written an intergalactic spy story, and it wasn't really tense, didn't really work. And he took it to Gardner and said, what's this need? And Gardner, as a joke, said, well, it needs more dinosaurs. So his friend went back and and right in the middle where it began to sag, has his spies walking along the road, and all of a sudden a dinosaur leaps out of the bushes and attacks him, and he pulls out his laser gun, and they're fighting back and forth, and then by the time that they're done and the dinosaur is dead and the guy's going on, there's a lot more energy in the story, and he was able to sell the story with this totally gratuitous dinosaur fight in the middle of it.
Well, it opens up expectations at all times. The reader says, well, when's the dinosaur going to leap out again? Or, when's a giant snail going to come and devour the city? That kind of gratuitous speculation, will really pump up the energy level.
I did the same thing in Vacuum Flowers. at one point. I use this as a principle. At one point, people are all getting on a boat and they're all going off to cross the Irish Sea. And I said, this is all slowing down. So I have them look up the River Shannon in the mist part and say, isn't that a plesiosaur over there? And everybody looks at this, why, yes, it is. And then the mist closes again and the ship goes on. And they never get back to explain why this should be significant. It just happened to be there.
But it says a whole lot about the society, because the fact that they say, oh, yes, a plesiosaur, it's like it was a seagull or a dolphin or something, says like, this is a society in which nothing that you see in the world around you today will correspond, because everything has changed.
Yeah, most of us get hooked on dinosaurs pretty early. It's like a baby's first words are mama, dada, and stegosaurus. Why are kids so mesmerized by dinosaurs?
Dinosaurs are important to children because they're a good symbol of magic and enchantment and wider, more exciting, even bloodier possibilities than the mundane, boring life that they're leading. And yet dinosaurs sort of have a fillip of official sanctioning, since they're told that dinosaurs were real. I mean, dragons weren't real. Dragons were made up, and there's no elves, and, parents will tell them this, but they have to admit that there were dinosaurs. And to a kid, the distinction between, well, there were dinosaurs and there are dinosaurs is maybe not all that clear. So it's easier to imagine that, maybe there'll be a dinosaur in the park. I mean, there were dinosaurs. One could have been taking a nap for a couple hundred years, and I guess that's as good an answer as any.
A lot of...
Actually, I think people have done academic papers on why kids love dinosaurs. They're the ultimate childhood image in terms of something that can overcome parental figures, authority figures. Your parents may be bigger than you are, but the Tyrannosaurus Rex is even bigger than your folks and can just squash your parents to a pulp if they give you a hard time. Now, that may be a bit of aberrant thinking on my part, not shared by other kids at the appropriate moment of dealing with dinosaurs, but I think that's what the appeal is.
Yeah. Now, as an adult, I just find it reassuring that, big, fat, stupid things can live for so long. Well, a lot of the authors in your collection, Dinosaurs, included a tyrannosaur. As a kid, I was a fan of Triceratops, the very punk-looking dinosaur with the spikes. Did you have a favorite?
Gee, I don't know. I always liked Triceratopses myself. They were nice. I suspect that the more aggressive, macho, alpha male type people like the Tyrannosauruses, big bitey ones with big fangs. But no, I like Triceratopses. They were nice. They used to have, do you remember those plastic dinosaurs they had when I was a kid? They had some great Triceratopses, I remember, great big ones made out of hard plastic. They were about like this big. They were neat. What I used to do with them was get lots of toy soldiers and Roman soldiers and stuff, and then have the Triceratops run over them. Sort of, woo! That was fun.
In Gardner's Dinosaurs collection, there are stories about time travelers chasing after dinosaurs by Brian Aldiss, Harry Turtledove, and L. Sprague de Camp. Not included is the classic big game hunter story, A Sound of Thunder by Ray Bradbury. Wealthy hunters pay to travel back to pump a few rounds into a dinosaur that's about to croak anyway. They can't gun down healthy ones because altering the past too much might change the present. But one hunter accidentally squashes a butterfly. When they beam back to the 20th century, it's, uh-oh, we're not in Kansas anymore, Toto. In one of the most original twists in science fiction dinosaurs, Robert Sawyer has ignored humans altogether. His second novel, Farseer, is about a race of highly evolved dinosaurs. Let's just call Robert up in Toronto. Rob, it's Rick again. Are the dinosaurs in Farseer based on real reptiles, or are they customized creations?
So that's a good question, because the dinosaurs in Farseer are based on a dwarf tyrannosaur called Nanotyrannus, which is just like a regular Tyrannosaurus rex, but only about 6 feet tall. I mean, a man-sized tyrannosaur. If you ask, is it a real dinosaur? Some paleontologists don't believe in Nanotyrannus. They think it's just a baby tyrannosaur. And others say, no, it's a full-sized, fully grown adult dinosaur. So they were alive right at the very end of the age of dinosaurs. And they were bipedal, as we are, 2 legs. They had binocular vision like we do. They had reasonably big brains. Any predator requires a reasonably sizable brain. And they were energetic and so forth. And I thought, well, these guys got cut off just as soon as they appeared. These Nanotyrannus creatures appeared just at the very end of the age of dinosaurs. So Farseer asks, what if some good Samaritan came along, scooped them up, and moved them to another world before the great extinctions and gave them another shot and see what they would come up with?
And how are your nanotyrannos different from humans?
The ways that they're different are mostly based on the fact that they're completely a predatory race. There are very few predators who get along well with members of their own kind all the time. If you're a predator, you tend to have a territory. The Quintaglios, which is what I call these evolved nanotyrannosaurs in Farseer, are very territorial creatures. And so here's a race that is trying to work together cooperatively and yet can't stand to be in the same room with each other for more than half an hour at a time. Makes it very, very difficult for them to develop a technological civilization.
And then you throw them the ultimate technical challenge.
Exactly. What happens in Farseer is the main character, Afsan, discovers fairly early on that the world is doomed, that it's going to disintegrate in about 200 years. And they're at a stage about equal to 1650 AD in Europe. So they're nowhere near any kind of interplanetary spaceflight. In fact, the concept is pure fantasy to them. And yet suddenly the guy comes along and says, hey, I've discovered the nature of our world, and that world has an expiration date on it. And if we don't get our act together before the expiration date, we go down the tubes with it. So let's try and work together. And the challenge of Farseer is the first book in a series. The challenge of the series is how does this race of beings overcome a pretty nasty biology in order to be able to save themselves? The lesson from all that is, if they can do it, then maybe we can do it, because we don't have anywhere near the obstacles that they have built into them.
That's true. You got to fax me up the next book in the series. See you, Rob. Rob verifies all his dinosaur data with Dr. Dale Russell, a paleontologist at the Canadian Museum of Nature in Ottawa. Dale wrote, here it is, An Odyssey in Time, The Dinosaurs of North America, one of the best dinosaur books out. Now, Dr. Russell knows his stuff academically, and he keeps up on dinosaurs in pop culture, so I knew he'd read the 1990 bestseller, soon to be a major motion picture, directed by Steven Spielberg, Jurassic Park. And I hear the dinosaurs in the movie version will be computer creations from George Lucas's company, Industrial Light and Magic. Jurassic Park involves a theme park being constructed on a tropical island featuring real dinosaurs that were genetically manufactured from dinosaur blood cells taken out of prehistoric mosquitoes that had been preserved in amber, sort of a clonosaurus. Before the park opens, things go wrong, of course, and suddenly it's humans battling Stegosaurus, Tyrannosaurus, and Triceratops. Jurassic Park is an exciting read, but to find out how scientifically accurate it is, I called Dr. Russell, and he even gave me a tour of his labs.
This is a section through a Triceratops skull, and these animals had very big skulls, and we're only seeing the part that enclosed the brain. So if you can imagine, in this region here would be the eye. Right here is part of the big frill that went back over the neck, and down here is where the neck part of the backbone attached onto the skull, and the jaws would be over here to the left more. And this goes right through the top of the brain here and down through the other side. And here you can see the olfactory bulbs where the smelling centers were of the brain, the tracks leading from the olfactory bulb back to the anterior part of the brain. Here is the optic roof where the signals from the eye were monitored. Below it is the pituitary gland here with channels for the carotid artery coming through. This is the medulla here. And here is the hole in the back of the head where the spinal cord came through into the brain. Now this brain here is about the size of, well, of your fists combined. For an animal that weighs on the order of 7 tons in life, this is an extraordinarily small brain.
One of the species of dinosaurs that are resurrected in Jurassic Park, the velociraptors, they work together as they hunt down the various humans in the book. They're like a slimy SWAT team. How realistic was that, do you think?
I think it's quite unrealistic. I would look more to reptilian insect analogs of behavior in what I would expect in a dinosaur. The smartest, i.e. the largest relative brain in any dinosaur, was about the size of a chicken, and this dinosaur was a dinosaurian genius. So I wouldn't look for too much intellectual accomplishment, and my personal feeling is this fact alone is the greatest flaw in the book.
Huh. Now, I understand Jurassic Park is a bit of a misnomer. A more accurate title might have been Jurassic/Late Mesozoic Mishmash. Exactly where and when do the various dinosaurs in the book come from?
They came from different continents and different parts of geologic time. And this may seem an arcane type of question that isn't important. Perhaps not, but we're separated from the last dinosaurs, Triceratops, Tyrannosaurus, which everyone knows, by approximately 65 million years. Those dinosaurs were equally separated from the true Jurassic dinosaurs. So we're speaking of time separation of components of Jurassic Park that are on the order of approach and exceed, in some cases, 100 million years. Add to that, they're from different continents, and you have something that could never represent an approximation to an ecosystem. I would have chosen myself for Jurassic Park the great Morrison ecosystem of the U.S., where there are tremendous samples, a tremendous diversity of dinosaurs in a mid-Mesozoic brontosaurian world with all kinds of interesting ecological extrapolations. I would have used one space and one time, picked the best sample, and run with it.
Yeah, it's too bad Crichton didn't refer to your book, An Odyssey in Time. By the way, I loved Ellie Kish's illustrations, but I was surprised when she told me that she has no formal scientific training. Did that make your collaboration difficult?
Ellie is a searcher for the reality of things. She has a very keen dimensional shape. She is extremely good-humored and open and lively, as you know. She also is extraordinarily good at finding the right color combinations. And if you can provide the kind of information that she needs, she doesn't need to know that an animal lived 87.6 million years ago. She needs to know what it looked like and what it lived with and what the landform was like. And when you supply her with those images that she needs, she's gone. And the intensity of her work is interesting too. I think we all have our intense moments when we're captivated by something, but when she's working on a canvas, she's not there anymore. It's really nice to see.
I didn't know a thing about dinosaurs when I started illustrating dinosaurs, and I was sent up to the paleontology department to do a little slide projection show for children. And when I got in there, I said, okay, what do they look like? I've got to do this little slide projection show, and Dr. Russell laughed at me. He said, your guess is as good as mine. And this started me, wow, they don't know what these creatures look like. And then with Russell, I thought I could bring these things to life. And it's something, it's all imaginary. It's not, I don't use anybody else's work. It's what he says. I sculpture the bones of these things and we put the muscles on together. He sits right there and he says, from there to there, from there to there, a little fatter, a little thinner, cut that away. And we just work together a mile a minute until we get this creature looking like he thinks it looks like.
When you and Dale produced that series of children's dinosaur books, did you make your dinosaurs cuter for kids? You know, kind of smurf up the Allosaurus?
No, well, I try not to get that ugly, mean look that Russell believes they had. He feels they were real hungry, running, eating machines. And they had to go. Like they were so big and hungry that the front legs of the Tyrannosaurus Rex started receding already in evolution. There was no need for it. He had to run for his food. And when he got it, chomp, chomp, chomp. If you watch an alligator, he goes, yup, 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 and that's it. They're alligatoring looking. Now, that's not cute.
No. Dale, in your conclusion to An Odyssey in Time, you propose that if dinosaurs weren't wiped out, they might have evolved into an intelligent species, kind of like us. Why did you pick the dinosaur Troodon as the starting point for your reptilian humanoids?
Oh, very simple. Troodon was a fascinating animal. We had discovered a skeleton long ago. Actually, the rancher's wife, Mrs. Vanderloo, took us to the site. The animal, from the remains that we had at that time, showed that it was bipedal, had an opposable thumb, and partly overlapping visual fields in front. It looked a lot more like we do than our mammalian progenitors of that time. So it represented a morphological base much closer to us than what our actual morphological base was. And I remember we had the remains of our little troodon here. They were in a big tray on a table, and Richard Leakey had come to give us a talk about human origins, and he looked at those bones. I told him what I was thinking of, and he smiled. Also, it had a big brain, And then I had the privilege of working with him in East Africa, and I thought, geez, this is interesting. These are primates. His techniques were super, but the problems were kind of the same. And yeah, there was a nice symmetry there.
When you published your speculations, the scientific community gave you some pretty heavy flack, didn't they?
A lot of people are troubled by it. Initially, among my scientific friends, I didn't get too many letters of support. But it's kind of a tar baby. They can't let it go. And it's still there. And when Edward Wilson of Harvard University put it into his thinking and into his books, other people have, of course, too. Some people profoundly reject it, but it's there. And I feel good about it. I call it an artifact of contention. I think it was extremely worthwhile, and I'm glad I did it.
I'm surprised how upset the scientific community got over Dale's extrapolations. I mean, as Ellie Kish pointed out, no one has seen a real dinosaur. All we have are their bones, and we don't even have all of them. One of my favorite dinosaur speculators is artist William Stout. He illustrated A Sound of Thunder in Ray Bradbury's Dinosaur Tales collection, and Life magazine devoted 5 pages to his 1981 book, The Dinosaurs, a fantastic new view of a lost era. Let's give Bill a buzz in Hollywood. Bill, it's Commander Rick. What makes dinosaurs so much fun to draw?
They're fun to draw because it's sort of like creating imaginary creatures or mythological creatures, except that they really lived at one time. They really existed, and you can actually visit their skeletons and refer to those skeletons in recreating these creatures. You know, it's funny, dinosaurs are referred to a lot of times as great failures, when actually dinosaurs are one of the great success stories of the world. We should be so lucky to live as long as the dinosaurs. The dinosaurs lasted for about 160 million years, and human beings have been here a mere fraction of that.
Exactly. One of your trademarks is dinosaurs with personality, even humanity. What's been the reaction to that?
The reaction's been varied. I think in one sense their humanity has made them very popular. On the other sense, there has been resistance from some people who think that humanity should not enter into any portrayals of animals, which I think is sort of foolish. To anyone who's ever had a pet, they realize the pets have personality, even if it's a reptile. And I've kept a lot of reptiles, lizards and snakes and things. And even when I kept several different species of one lizard, I could tell what each one was by its different personality. And because I could do that, I knew I wasn't just reading into it. Animals, in many senses, not completely so, but in many senses are reflections of ourselves. And we can see what we consider human traits, which are actually animal traits within the creatures themselves. So I have no guilt whatsoever about anthropomorphizing animals.
Yeah. Thanks, Bill. Of course, drawing animals that act like humans has been a staple of comic books for years. And the biggest name in comic book dinosaurs isn't Tyrannosaurus, it's Mark Schultz. His science fiction adventure series, Xenozoic Tales, was reprinted in color by Epic as Cadillacs and Dinosaurs. My favorite title since the Flaming Carrot Patrol. Mark's stories are reminiscent of EC Comics of the 50s, strange tales of monsters, he-men, and beautiful gals. Oh, right, Nancy. Years ago, as a promotional gimmick, the publishers produced a Cadillacs and Dinosaurs chocolate bar. I've been saving it for a special occasion, so why not now? It's fossilized. When did you first get hooked on dinosaurs?
They're the first thing I can remember drawing. I have no idea. I've actually tried to think what was the first time.
when did I first become aware of dinosaurs? What was that first thing? And for the life of me, I can't remember what it was. I know I can remember seeing when I was really young picture books in stores with dinosaurs in them, you know, how and why discovery books of dinosaurs that just, you know, boom, again, this against the idea of this whole world, these great creatures, and where are they? Why can't I see them living out in the wilds of Pennsylvania, you know, and then one thing that I do remember was I grew up outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I remember my parents taking me when I was about 5 to the Carnegie Museum, which has got a wonderful dinosaur collection, one of the first 2 Tyrannosaurus skeletons found and stuff, and just being the size of them just washing over me, just being blown away. I don't think that's the first time I encountered them, but I think that kind of impaired me for life, you know.
Do you have a favorite dinosaur? You know, if you could invite one for dinner, which one would you pick?
Well, probably Tyrannosaurus, because they're sexy, you know, they're like a Maserati or something. They're just built for speed and ferocity, and they're all great, but the Tyrannosaurus is just like such a visually stunning image. They're all visually stunning, but I guess it's I don't know, maybe it's the most macho dinosaur. I don't know. Maybe I'm compensating.
Speaking of Tyrannosaurus Rex, Steve Bissette is currently working on a new comic book series called Tyrant. It's going to be the life story of a T-Rex from egg to fossil.
You know, here's a creature that just fed all its life. It was a walking eating machine, and couldn't have been very pleasant. I'm going to try to deal with, you know, what were its passions? Obviously, eating. What drove dinosaurs to mate? How did creatures that were walking eating machines, what was the impulse that led them to come together, couple, and then get away from each other before they chose to launch into an attack?
Well, if you figure out why, you could create a Dear Abby for dinosaurs.
There you go. I could do that. Just put scales to her and it's that.
Yeah, sure. The title Tyrant suggests that you're going to give your dinosaur some personality. How much of Tyrant will be speculation?
It's all speculation. You can go from a learned base. I'm trying to be very careful about keeping with a specific geographical region and only working with the creatures that they know existed in that area during that time. But even with that, within that, it's all speculation. We don't know how the Tyrannosaur really looked, how they really lived. We don't know what kind of skin they had. We don't know really how they acted. We can speculate. We can guess. And now and again, there'll be a fossil find, like when they found the hadrosaur's nest, the duckbill's nest, and suddenly realized that these creatures you could extrapolate from that a very sophisticated community life. They had communal nests. They protected each other. There's a family orientation there. As much as these creatures have souls. And that's what I want to convey with Tyrant. Hopefully that's what will make it different than a number of publishers are doing dinosaur comics in the coming year, I'm sure. I know of at least 2 projects, but they're taking a very sort of cut and dry approach to it. It'll be very dramatic visually, and I'm sure they'll be exciting to read, but I'm trying to invest something into it that I'd never seen elsewhere.
Well, I know Dr. Dale Russell would argue vehemently that dinosaurs don't have souls. Anyway, I'll tell you what fascinates me about dinosaurs. They really existed. Millions of them for millions of years. The air you breathe once filled the lungs of stegosaurs and diplodocuses. Some of the atoms that make up our bodies were once part of triceratops and tyrannosaurs. Now, Bill Stout observes that dinosaurs lasted 160 million years and we've been around for 1 or 2 million. But that's an erroneous comparison. We should be saying that reptiles ruled for 150 million years. Mammals have dominated for 60 million years so far. Humans are just an adaptable subspecies, the hadrosaurs of mammals. So the Mesozoic moral of the story is this. When dinosaurs died out, they all went. Only a few small reptiles and birds survived. And today, if other mammals go, we go too. Next week on Second Nature, chaos theory. Can a butterfly flapping its wings in China affect the weather in New York City? Also, air pollution. Is the air from New York City killing butterflies in China?
In here, peanuts and magazines. Out there, oblivion.
You have selected Club Dave, the future of TV. Here are your viewing options. For Club Dave music videos, press 1.